Dr. Biju already told that science, modern science development is always nowadays infrastructure intensive, in the sense unless you have good infrastructure facilities, you can't do quality of science. So I'm just going to speak something on electron microscopy, an indispensable tool in materials characterization. Of course, microscope, you might have heard of the optical microscope, but electron microscope is the latest technique which is used in all fields of science, not only materials, in the fields of biology, medicine, polymer, metallurgy, materials. Any kind of science you take, electron microscopy is there. So my outline of talk is something like what is microstructure, some introduction, factors deciding microstructure, something about SEM and energy specific spectrometer, and how you can do qualitative quantitative analysis, and summary of my talk. So if you go for any material synthesis or a material preparation, these are the steps involved in any research. First you take the raw materials and you do synthesis by different routes. Then you do the characterization by using different techniques, and you check whether it is suitable or not. If it is suitable, then you go for product development or component in specific applications. If it is not, then you are going to look for these things, that is modify the structure, microstructures or composition. Then you go back to the synthesis. So this is something like any materials development. These things are going to happen. In the case of like optical properties or electrical properties or magnetic properties or mechanical, whatever you are looking, I think these steps are basically involved in any material development. Of course, materials are the main backbone of any technology. Without a good quality material, you don't have any technology. So material development is a key factor in any technology. So one of the factors is that microstructure. As you can see, the microstructure has a lot of influence in shooting the product or shooting the component which you are looking for. So what is microstructure? Microstructure, the name itself shows that the appearance of material at micron or nanometer level. So you can see different microstructures. You can see the biological material like pollen grains, a polymer, a ceramic tube, a ceramic sintered microstructure. You can see the RBC cells. You can see highly crystalline grains. So microstructure varies depending on the specimen and depending on the preparation and many other factors. Of course, I have shown some more micrographs. You can see the blood cells, you can see the ant head, or you can see the cantilever tip, you can see the diamond thin film. A microstructure steel that contains about carbon and calcium phosphate crystals. So microstructure varies depending on the material. Of course, you can see the material, the microstructure importance. You can see the microstructure like this, you can see the microstructure like this. You can identify what kind of fracture it has taken place, whether it is a brittle fracture or it is a ductile fracture. So by seeing the microstructure, you can see the cleavage in the microstructure once it gets fractured, and you can identify that this is a what fracture. And this is a ductile fracture, and this is the. So you can see the effect of microstructure on the electrical properties. So you see the same composition can be changed, and you can see the electrical properties dependence on the grain boundary and grain. And you know that impedance spectroscopy, you have the grain contribution and the grain boundary contribution. So if you have a grain boundary phase in the material, you can see the grain boundary influence in the electrical properties can be observed by modifying the structure. So microstructure, generally you can see these factors. One is the size, of course the shape and the distribution and orientation of the particle. So of course the orientation of the particle depends on how the crystallization takes place, and the polycrystalline solid is anisotropic. That means you can have different properties in different directions. So the orientation of the grain in the microstructure is also very important in bearing the properties. So that's what the impact of microstructure is something like 55% on the overall property of the database of the material. So you can improve the property to the extent of like 55%. Suppose you have a property like 100, in that you can have 55% contribution from the microstructure which you can modify with the microstructure modifications. So what are the factors that affect the microstructure? Basically the crystalline structure, that is the main contribution for the crystallization when the nucleation of the stars of the material. The crystalline structure, how it grows after nucleation. So the particle is growth depends on the nucleation, and that depends on the crystalline structure. So crystalline structure is basically the very important factor for contribution of the microstructure. The second factor is of course the impurities which is present in the material, and you have the mechanical deformation or mechanical stress which you introduce into the material, that will also increase the microstructure. The second is the heat treatment. Heat treatment also, if you have the material preparation, if you do the different heat treatments, microstructure changes with respect to heat treatment. Of course, you have the initial microstructure, that is the initial microstructure of the material, what you are starting the material composition. So the initial microstructure or the initial composition of the material. Of course, heating and cooling and rate of furnace atmosphere. These things also we can increase the microstructure. When you do heating or cooling, the crystallization changes with respect to rate of heating and cooling. So these are the factors if you see crystalline structure, impurities, deformation, heat treatment, initial microstructure, overall temperature, processing rate, heating and cooling rate of furnaces. So all these factors can increase the microstructure, and which has got a lot of influence on the properties. So basically you have, if you are seeing something like, you have a microscope, like you have a scanning electron microscope, you have a transmission electron microscope, we have a lot of attachments. One of very important is the energy dispersion spectrometer. So why we look for all the microstructure? Most of the microscopic or the bulk properties are entirely dependent on the microscopic the process that takes place at the spatial scale of micrometer to nanometer. So controlled by chemical structures that take place at the micrometer and nanometer scale level, most of the bulk properties are dependent. So we have like the latest is the field environmental scanning electron microscope with respect to the biological samples. When you have the biological samples like tissues or the cells which are very prone for the vacuum, and when they get shrink when you put into vacuum, so those cannot be, you can see the artifacts in place of the actual microstructure. So in that case, what the latest development is that instead of the microscope is basically in the vacuum. So what they have done is environmental scanning electron microscope, which allows the vacuum to reduce, and near to the atmosphere the microstructure can be observed. So where you can have the like biological samples need to be either dried or cryogenically frozen. This means the force of involved in transition to our liquids such as the drying of adhesives or melting of alloys could not be observed. So with this development, one can see the microstructure of the biological samples near to the atmosphere. So far we might be seeing the light microscopes in different areas. Mostly we can see the medicine, hospitals, science and engineering. So what is the limitation of the light microscope? You know that the light microscope, the wavelength of the light is the main limiting factor to go for high resolution. So for that, electrons are used in place of light. So electrons can overcome the limitation of the light, that is wavelength. Electrons are small particles within the atom, and microscopes that use electrons rather than light are called electron microscope. So what we say the light microscope, the source is the light. In place of light, we are using electrons, then it's called electron microscope. So what information you can get from SEM? That is topography, morphology. Topography means the surface structure of the material. The morphology, shape, size, and all those things we can observe. The chemistry. Apart from the morphology, one can take or one can visualize or one can interpret the chemistry part of the microstructure. That means what you are seeing is also can be analyzed chemically. The second aspect is the orientation and crystallography, which you do normally with the transmission electron microscope. With the latest techniques called EBSD or electron beam scatter diffraction technique, one can observe the same aspects what you normally see in the TEM. And sometimes you can do the in situ experiments like the microstructure variation with respect to atmosphere or with respect to temperature or with respect to mechanical stress. One can visualize the microstructure variation in situ in the microscope. So basically what look like the microscope look like that the schematic diagram of the microscope. You have the electron optical column, you have the sample area, you have different detectors connected to the sample chamber, and you have the total electron optical column will be highly vacuum. You have the scanning coils, you have different attachments like detectors like secondary electron, backscatter electron, and vacuum pumps, and all these ports can be connected to this specimen chamber. I don't know how many of you have seen that microscope, but basically this looks like this. The schematic diagram is seen inside the microscope will be like this. So of course it may look like this. We have the primary source is the electron gun, where the electrons will be generated and it will pass through the lenses like condenser lens and the objective lens, and you have the stand coils, and you have the sample area, and you have the detector, and it gets amplified and it will be given to the display. So that's how you can see the core microscope, but there is a lot of science behind this and it is tough to give in a short time, but I will give some glimpses of what is the different parts, like starting from the electron gun, condenser lens, objective lens, in the specimen chamber, so the vacuum part and the detectors and all those things. I just touch upon the basics, not going into the deep into the subject. So why we use electrons? You know that their wavelength can be tuned. One of the main thing is you can tune the wavelength by changing the accelerating voltage. So the other aspect is the wave behavior of the electrons and particle behavior of electrons. So both has contributed for the electron microscope development. So the particle behavior can be like electron specimen interaction, so that you can get a lot of information from the material, and chemical analysis, most of the information is available from these factors. So you can tune the wavelength by changing the accelerating voltage. So which I will just touch upon what is this accelerating voltage. So the wavelength is something like you can go to like 0.0037 nanometer with 100 kilovolts, like 120, 200, 300 kilo. So you can reduce the wavelength to the level of like 0.002 nanometers. So wavelength reduction with the accelerating voltage, that is helpful to go for the transmission electron microscope, which is also a contribution for the this fact. So what are the advantages of the electrons? They are very short wavelength, low mass, they are not destructive to the material, so negatively charged, so they can be focused or deflected whatever manner you want, just like light. So strong interaction with electron matter, so that you can get lot of interaction with the material, that is elastic scattering, diffraction, inelastic scattering. All these interactions can give different signals which can be taken for getting a lot of information from the material. So what is the main disadvantages of these material? The electrons are, they are highly more interaction with the material. Most when it is coming to the very sensitive material, you will not be able to do with the electron microscope, and sometimes the preparation of the material it also limits the microscope use. Suppose you have a very bulk sample, sometimes you will not be able to use with the electron microscope, but most of these samples can be viewed in the electron microscope, whatever may be the nature of the material. So wavelength of light is the resolution factor. I know that wavelength of light is directly related to the resolution of the optical microscope, and that's what the inversely proportional to the numerical aperture, that is what is also known. But the wavelength of light can be overcome by the electron waves. I think these are the developments which led to the electron microscope. Of course, the first discovery of the electrons, then the wave nature and particle nature of this the electron, then finally the Raska built up the electron microscope, which was built mostly on the transmission electron microscope, not the scanning electron microscope. So which it won a Nobel Prize in 1986 to him. So with the electron wavelength, what we are seeing is something like 300 kV. We can go to the wavelength something like 0.002 nanometers. And but the microscope resolution, that is electron microscope resolution, still you can get only 0.1 nanometer. So because there are a lot of factors which has limited resolution to the extent of what you get the wavelength of the electron beam. So because one of the factors is the aberrations, what we see in the general optical microscope, and the instability is caused by the electronic, mechanical, acoustic, thermal, many factors which limits the resolution what you get from the wavelength. So resolving forward, you know, this is very simple. How you can distinguish two closely particles to the minimum. So that gives the high resolution. So the electron microscope gives very high resolution. That is why we are looking for the electron microscope with greater depth of focus as well as with greater magnification and with greater resolving power. So if you have the scale, so if you have different viewing objects, like starting from atoms to see needle diameter, even much scale, you can see it with the human eye. So, but when you want to viruses or down to macron or atoms, you go to transmission electron microscope. When you want to like 100 micrometer, like 10 micrometer or micrometer, you look for with a light microscope. And human eye, you can go to like 0.2 mm, that is the resolving power of the eye. With optical microscope, you can go for 0.2 micrometer. With a transmission electron microscope with line resolution, you go to 0.1 nanometer. So the resolution depends on the microscope as well as the other factors what you have just discussed. When you compare the light microscope, of course this is usual to just get a feel of what is the difference between electron microscope and the light microscope, so one can easily understand. For that sake, one can see the carrier, the source is the photons in the light microscope. Here you have electrons. Of course the wavelength of light is in this visible region, to some extent in the UV region. So the wavelength can be tuned depending on the accelerating voltage. So most of the optical microscope you have option of operating in air, but here it has to be done in vacuum. And you can do the visual observation and it has to be observed in some screen. So the contrast and resolving power, what I told already, here the lenses are glass, here the electromagnetic lenses. So here mechanically aligned the glass lenses you have to do electronically. So here aperture angle is something like 64 degrees. Here the stability of the electron spread is very, very low. So the stability of the electron beam is very, very high. And one of the other factors is depth of field, which is very low in the light microscope, whereas in the electron microscope you have the depth of field is very, very high. Depth of field, which is something like what you can see visually in the three-dimensional effect of the object. So normally when you see a rough surface, so you in the optical microscope you can see in a single plane, you don't see the roughness. But in the electron microscope you can see the roughness, the depth profile, the ups and downs can be seen because of the electron beam can focus to the extent like 1 micrometer depth, so that you can bring the ups and downs to a single focus and which we can visualize the three-dimensional effect of the image. So the electron optical column, what we have decided is that these are the parts, electron sources, that's the primary factor. So that is how one decides whether the first microscope, electron microscope, they will ask whether it is the tungsten based or the LAB6 or field emission. So the electron source is the first deciding factor of the microscope. Then comes all these lenses and deflection coils and stigmatas which are part of the microscope. So we have different sources. We have mostly the electrons can be emitted either through thermionic emission or field emission. So in the thermionic emission we have two types. One is tungsten based and the other one is LAB6, which are very low work function as well as highly stable at very high temperature. So these are the factors which has suited for the tungsten as LAB6, and for field emission we are using the single crystal tungsten. So field, you normally know that the work function, if it is low, if you can heat the material, you can emit the electrons. So you are heating the element like the tungsten element or LAB6 by using some supply, and this is called thermionic gun, where you have this will be acting like a filament, will be acting like a cathode, and this is the grid cap which will be acting like a grid, and you have the anode. So this is a triode, like you can bias the emission parameter by tuning the bias to this grid cap. This will be slightly negative to the cathode and the anode is highly positive. So how you can accelerate the beam from the generation to the down. So if you have high accelerating voltage, you are going to have more energy in the beam as well as sharpness of the beam also will be very high. So the first crossover is called the real source, that is the decides factor of the resolution of the microscope. So this is generally this thermionic gun. So mostly we depend on the tungsten or LAB6 for the thermionic emission. Suppose you have the excitation of the grid. Here it is very low, here it is very high, so the sharpness is increasing. So this is the whole picture of the gun, for thermionic gun. Mostly the first crossover, that is called the P0, which gives the beam diameter. So as I told, this is the biosimilar resistor, this is the heating supply, this is welded cap they call, and this is the anode, and the anode to the cathode is given the accelerating voltage. That's what we say, like 30 kilovolts or 15 kilovolts, which you give to the electron acceleration from the source to the down to the specimen. So the grid controls the beam current. If you give very high grid, very highly negative, then it stops emission. If you give very slow, then it gives more emission. So the grid bias can control the emission from the thermionic gun. So this is the emission current and the brightness, the bias voltage. If you increase the bias, you have more brightness at a certain point. And if you increase still bias, then the emission reduces, then you will not get any increase in the filament current. So mostly we have the source spot size that decides the, with tungsten you can get to the source size something like 30 micrometer. With LAB6 you get 5 micrometer. So these are the deciding factors. Suppose you have LAB6, you can get a very smaller spot size, and which you can go for a very high resolution. The next one is the field emission gun. You know that if you apply very high field between a sharp tip and to the anode, you can tunnel the electrons. Suppose you have like a sharp tip like 10 nanometers and like tungsten crystal, and you apply very high potential between this tip and the anode, because if you have a sharp tip, the field will be very high. So as much small, the field will be very large. So something like you apply like 30 kilovolts or something like that. So the field will be very high and the electrons will be tunneling and the electrons will be coming out of the gun. So that is how the electron source will be generated from the field emission gun. But here the tungsten is highly oxidizing in the vacuum. So you have to keep in very high vacuum when you use field emission gun. So if you get allowed to even for to the level of like 10⁻⁻⁶ torr, it will get oxidized and you will not be able to use, and you will not get the reproducibility of the electron emission. So that's why the field emission gun, though its importance is there, but at the same time the maintenance is very high. You have to keep it always in vacuum without oxidizing the tungsten crystal. So this looks like the tungsten filament crystal for field emission. So when you compare with the different sources, you have the different parameters starting from the price, lifetime, temperature, vacuum. If you see, the vacuum is very high when you go for field emission. In the field emission also we have different sources, that's cold emission gun and Schottky emission, and what I have given is Schottky emission. So you have the source spot size, so you can go the source spot size very small. So compared to the source spot size in the tungsten is very high, so you can go to like 15 to 30 nanometer. So you can go for very high resolution in the case of the field emission gun. So when it comes to the price, I think it is 100 times more than the tungsten filament. So we are using the electron magnetic lenses in the for deflecting the electron beam. So electromagnetic lens is based on the fact that moving electrons are forced by its magnetic field into a straight spiral trajectory, focused into one point. So the electrons, how they are focused into a point depends on the focal length of the electromagnetic lens. Of course, these are the parameters like accelerating voltage, windings, lens current, which we might have studied during the classical studies. So if you increase the lens current more and more, that is the inversely proportional to the focal length, so you are exciting the coil very high with more strengthening the lens. That means the focal point will be reduced. So these are the fixed except the lens current which you are going to excite the lens. If you increase the more current, you are reducing the focal point and reducing the focal length of the lens. So we have actually, so this is a simple Gaussian formula, and basically what we are looking is how the electron beam is generated from the source is demagnified so that you get a very small spot size when you are seeing in the specimen. So how much you can demagnify is very important, so that depends on the resolution. If you have a very big spot size, your resolution will be very poor. So how much you can demagnify using these lenses is all the matter. Now we are not looking for magnification, rather we are demagnifying the spot size. So what you have seen the I can go back. I can go back. Yeah. So what we are looking is the spot size. Here we are getting like 30, we are getting like 5 minimum, we are getting 15. So these spot sizes will be further reduced using the electromagnetic lenses. First one is the condenser lens, the first one is the next one is the objective lens. So how much you can demagnify, it depends on how you strengthen the lens coils. So depending on your work, you are going to demagnify and reduce the spot size to the minimum possible so that you can increase the resolution. Good. So this is a simple one. You can see that demagnification is done by the other way actually. So if you have like D0 by M, that means this is the final diameter of the spot size and D0 is the initial spot size. So you can demagnify D0 by M, that is the magnification which you say, the demagnification you say. So you can decrease the spot size using the simple lens formula. I don't have to explain, I think, these things, so you are very simple. So the only thing we are looking is demagnifying the spot size from the initial to the D1. So using simple lens formula, we are going to demagnify. So if you have the strength of the lens, your focal length will be less and this will be reduced. The S1 will be reduced. So you are reducing the what? Demagnification will be more and more. So you can increase this, decrease the spot size more and more. So likewise, we are just seeing with the condenser lens system also. But here there are different factors like that. We have the condenser lens. So you can excite the condenser lens where you can reduce the spot size. If you reduce the condenser lens current, you are increasing the spot size. So if you are increasing the condenser lens, what happens? The divergence angle will be more and more electrons will be dispersed out of the electron optical column. So you will be losing the electrons out of the electron optical column. So final spot size on the sample, product of demagnification of each lens in the electron optical column. So you get the final spot size in the sample, you get the demagnification, whatever you get the factor, this initial source spot size divided by the demagnification factor. So that is how you get the final spot size on the sample. Of course, you can do lot of factors, how you can strengthen the condenser lens. This is a weak condenser lens, this is a strong condenser lens. If you weak the condenser lens, the spot size will be very high. Where when you increase the spot size, your current carrying capacity will be very high. So if you decrease the spot size, your current carrying capacity will be less. Though you are decreasing the spot size, but at the same time, when you work on different aspects, the spot size is also very important. What you are looking for the resolution alone, but not sometimes the other factors. Suppose I want to do the EDS, energy dispersive spectrometer, where I want very large current from the specimen. So I cannot use with a strong condenser lens. I have to go for a weak condenser lens where the spot size can be increased and I can get more maximum current and more signal from the sample. So it depends on what basis we are going to use the condenser lens. It all depends on the microscopist and what he is looking for. Here also you have the short working distance and long working distance. When you have like a working distance is nothing but the sample positioning from the tip of the pole piece, from the final pole piece. So you can increase and decrease the working distance from the pole piece downward or upward. So if you can do upward, you are working on a short working distance. So here your spot size will be very small, here the spot size will be very high. But here the divergence angle is very small, here the divergence angle is very high. So this is also very important when you are looking for a depth of field. The depth of field will be good when you are using in a shorter divergence angle, and the depth of field will be poor when you are using in a higher divergence angle. So what you are looking for, and these things are done by the electron microscopist. Of course, these are the aberrations normally occurred during the optical microscope. These spherical aberrations, you know that the electrons may not be of having the same strength. The outer electrons may be having more strength, so focus at a shorter focal length, and the inner electrons may have a less energy electrons, so they focus at a higher focal length. So then the difference between makes the spherical aberration, and which you can control using some other stigmatic coils like that. So likewise the chromatic aberration, just like the color, different colors will have different focal length. So all the electrons may not have the same energy coming from the same place also. Sometimes you have high energy electrons will have a shorter focal length, low energy electrons will have a higher focal length. Then you have the chromatic aberration, just like what you see in the lens microscope. So you have the astigmatism. This is also the electromagnetic lens may not be symmetric as we expect. So the unsymmetric can give a diffused image, and which will be asymmetric in the image formation. So this also can be controlled by the stigmatic coils. So these are the stigmatic coils which will be acting opposite to the what you have seen the astigmatism. So you can have coils which is blurred in the vertical direction. You can oppositely you can excite and reduce to spherical. So these are the stigmatic coils which you can do by correcting the astigmatism in the image formation. So of course this is the objective lens. I already described about that. The crossover emission fine demagnetic. So the final spot size is coming like 10 nanometer with approximately the current, beam current will be like 10 power minus 9 to 10 power minus 12. That is nearly 1 picoampere. So how you can change the objective lens with the excitation, more current, less current, and high current. So out of focus, in focus, and out of focus lens current is too strong before reaching the sample area. Of course, these are the fine details which you may not require right now. I just give some glimpses which you will be using when you are really using the electron microscope. So the scanning of the, why we call scanning electron microscope? Here the beam will be scanned over the specimen what you are seeing. The scanning like what you see like a start beam will be scanning like this, coming like this is called something like progressive scanning. You have different scannings, you know that. This is a progressive scanning starting from here, scans this sample. So you scan, it means you have a scan coil which will control the beam to scan over the sample. So this scan of the particular area that we can do by exciting the scan coils somewhere here. You have different detectors, that is EDS, secondary electron detector, backside detector, and you have a sample stage. So normally this all will be in vacuum, in very high vacuum. When you want to load the sample, you have to break the vacuum and take the sample chamber out and load the sample and again put back and get the vacuum. So this is normal procedure when you do the electron microscope. So sometimes the sample, you can put some more samples, having a holder of something like 6 samples, and the microscope look like something like this, what we have in our institute. Sometimes your sample may not be conducting because mostly the electron beam interaction takes place. So when the electrons are highly charged particles, when your material is non-conducting like ceramic or any biological sample, then the electrons will fall on the sample, get charged and gets heated. So to avoid that, you have to give a small coating like a carbon or chromium or gold. Normally we do with a sputtering. So this will be in the level of something nanometer level, which will not hide the information what you are looking. So the gold coating is required, gold or any other conductive coating is required when your sample is non-conducting in the, for seeing in the cell. So how you get magnification? Just now we are taught that the beam will be scanning on the sample. So the magnification is done by the what you see in the screen divided by the scan area. So magnification is the line scan what you do on the sample, and whereas what you see in the screen. Suppose you have like a 10 centimeter screen size and you have like a 1 mm or something like 1 centimeter. You say 10 centimeter by 1 centimeter is the magnification. That means it is the ratio of the CRT or the monitor screen divided by the line scan what you do on the sample area. Suppose you want to get more magnified, you are not increasing the screen, but you are increasing the reducing the sample area. If you reduce more and more, something like you do like 1 micron area, so then the magnification will be like 10 centimeter by 1 micrometer. So that much magnification you are doing to the image. So that is how you have the magnification 1 mm scan area, you have the magnification of 100, you have 100 micrometer, you have 1000, you have like 1 micrometer, you can get like 100,000 magnification. So how you reduce the scan area of the sample can increase the magnification of the material. So the contrast is also given in different areas. This contrast is given by the like signal A and signal B and the ratio of the product that gives the contrast. So these are all very fine details of this one. So far we have seen the basic parts of the microscope, and what we are seeing is the gun. That's one of the important parameter of the microscope. We have a thermionic gun. In the thermionic gun we have the tungsten and the LAB6 and the field emission gun. Then we have different lenses. One is the condenser lens and the objective lens. Then we have the aperture in the objective lens. Then we have the scan coils, which will determine the sample scanning area. If you reduce the scanning area, you are going to increase the magnification. So these are the parts which we have seen in the electron optical column. Now, once the beam coming to your sample, then how the electron beam interacts with your sample. So what are the signals you are going to get with the electron beam specimen interaction? So and what information you are going to get? I think that we will just read, we'll go through some slides. So the electron matter interaction. So normally the electron beam is highly charged particle, so it can penetrate the sample depending on the sample, of course. So the penetration depends on many factors. Normally you take two processes takes place when the electron beam falls on the sample. One is elastic scattering. Elastic scattering, the name itself says that the electrons will be falling into the sample and it goes into that, and some electrons will be scattering back without losing any energy. So elastic scattering is the electrons are coming back without losing any energy. So the scattering angle something like maybe 0 to 180 degrees, may lose something very small but insignificant loss of energy, and sometimes the angle is such that the electrons comes out of the sample straight outward. So the elastic scattering depends on many factors that we will just go through afterwards. So the next factor is inelastic scattering. So here the electrons penetrate more into the material, deep into the material and loose, and sometimes it will give some extra signals other than the primary electron beam. So when you have like, I don't know whether you know a little bit chemistry, so you have the backscatter, the secondary electrons. The electrons are highly charged particles, negative charge. So you have the atoms which are also having highly charged electron particles, which will be repelling from the primary electrons. So once the primary electrons are high energy, then it can repel the sample electrons to outward. So those are called secondary electrons. So secondary electrons gives something about the morphology or the topography information. Suppose the electrons knock out from the inner cell and the outer cell electron will fall to the inner cell, then you have the characteristic X-ray. So that gives the chemical information of the material. So there are a lot of interactions takes place in this process that's called inelastic scattering. So where you get a lot of signals like this to go forward. Yeah, just before. Yeah. So you have different signals coming with the electron specimen interaction. So you can say that these are the primary electrons, that the incident electrons. You have secondary electrons, you have backscatter electrons, you have other electrons, you have X-rays, you have cathode-luminescence, you have absorbed electrons, and of course you have some EMF, and some electrons will be transmitted. So in the case of like a transmission electron microscope, so the electrons will be transmitted to the sample. So in that case, your specimen should be very thin enough, and the beam should be very high energy. That means something like 300 kilo electron volts. Then the beam will penetrate into the sample, and you get something information of the sample crystallography information and the particle size and many things which is dealt with the transmitted electron microscope. But primarily we are more interested in the secondary electrons which comes from the sample specimen, and we are more interested in the X-rays which will give the chemical information. This will give this, the topography information. The backscatter electrons also give some information with respect to the topography. And cathode-luminescence, these are related to the electron-hole recombination. When you have the electron falling, they can create some electron-hole recombination. You have cathode-luminescence. These other electrons also give something, the binding of the element, and that you can give, the binding energy can be determined from the other electrons. And of course, these are the other signals which you come from the electron beam specimen interaction. So it's very difficult to teach all these the interactions in one go. I think you can just go through the subject if you are more interested. But the secondary electrons and X-rays, I can just give you a little bit about the information. So the electron beam when it goes into the sample, we have different depths are possible. So the secondary electrons which you are looking into morphology information. So secondary electrons comes from the level of something like nanometer level. Then you have coming the backscatter electrons, that is coming from the nucleus of the element, nucleus of the atoms. The characteristic X-rays which comes slightly deeply from the material. So other things we are not more interested. So the secondary electrons which is the secondary the topography information. The backscatter electrons also give something like the image contrast depending on the backscatter electrons of the elements which are present in the material. It depends on the atomic number of the elements present in the material. And we have the characteristic X-rays I already told. So the depth of penetration depends on many factors. One is the accelerating voltage, that is the energy of the beam. The other one is the atomic number. If you have very high energy, this is low accelerating voltage and this is high accelerating voltage. Suppose the same sample can be done with a different accelerating voltage. So if you have a low accelerating voltage, this is called pure safe interaction. This is the interaction volume. This is more interaction volume which increase with a high accelerating voltage. That means you have used very high energy beam. But when you have taken a high atomic number, suppose I am using like a low atomic number element, when suppose I am using like a tungsten or bismuth or any rare which has got high atomic number. So the interaction volume is something different. This is something like a hemispherical, and the interaction volume is increased with increase of the accelerating voltage. There is a formula. The depth of penetration is dependent on the atomic number, inversely proportional to atomic number, and density, as well as the accelerating voltage and the atomic weight of the element. So definitely we have the softness and contrast of SEM micrographs, and the depth of field images are dependent upon three major electron beam parameters. That's what we are seeing: the probe size and the probe current and the electron probe convergent angle. So convergent angle also determines how much will be the probe current in the beam. So the other factor what I told is, unlike you see in the optical microscope, electron microscope has capability of depth of field. Depth of field is nothing but focusing two nearby objects or two nearby points of the material can be bring to a single focus, so that you can get the profile or the roughness of the material which cannot be done with the optical microscope. So electron has got the ability to focus very closely related points of the material. So the depth of field, suppose you have this is the optimum focus, and you have a roughness like this of the beam, roughness of the material. So you can bring the focus to the level of one up, one down to the same focus level, so that you can see the image, or you can see the image very close, very focused to the roughness of the material. So this depends, the depth of field depends on the working distance. If you have a large working distance, the depth of field will be very high because the divergent angle will be very small, and large depth of field that can be obtained inside the images is one of the most striking capabilities rather than high resolution, and is often more valuable feature to users. So I will just see the depth and the working distance, how they are related, and we are also related to the aperture size. We have aperture size which will control the beam dimension of the final beam dimension. You can control 600 micron, you have 200 micron. So you have this is a large aperture, you have 600 micron, you have 200 micron, and working distance is same. And here 100 micron, 100 micron, aperture size, but it's a large working distance. So which one is better? The large working distance has got more depth of field. So you are able to see the three-dimensional effect of the spring. So if you are working in a large working distance, you can get more depth of field of the object. So like what we are seeing is silver crystal, grown and spiral growth mechanism. So you can see how best we can see the three-dimensional effect of the silver crystal. So normally if you see in the optical microscope, you don't see this much three-dimensional effect in optical microscope. These are because of the depth of field of the microscope. So the high resolution of the depends on the small probe size. So as much as probe size is small and adequate probe current and minimal interference from decimal vibration and space. So when you do very high resolution work, so there should not be any extra magnetic interference to the electron beam. Even opening and closing the door is also not allowed when you do very high resolution work. So you can do the small probe size by strengthening the magnetic lenses using optimum objective lens aperture size and using short working distance and strengthening the condenser lens. So these are the ways one can get very high resolution in the electron microscope. So you have different micrographs are taken under different absorption current. This absorption current is very high, this absorption current is very small, but you can see change in the morphology of the material. So we can have to optimize the accelerating voltage also. Suppose you are seeing a sphere like this, you can see with a very high accelerating voltage, you can see a very low accelerating voltage. So you can see the edge effect when you are losing the spherical nature when you are using very high accelerating voltage. So you have to optimize the accelerating voltage or the beam energy depending on the nature of the sample which you are seeing. So here also you can see at suppose if you are seeing a biological sample, you are seeing with a very high accelerating voltage. That means that will going to charge up the material and you will contaminate and you will lose the information or the surface structure. When you can do the same thing with a 5 kilo electron volt and you can visualize the sample in a much better way. So you can do the image quality by changing the contrast, which can be adjusted. And you should not allow to charge up the material for long or long exposure. So you have a secondary electron image, you have a backscatter electron image. The backscatter electron image depends on the contrast, that is depends on the backscatter electrons are mainly depend on the atomic number of the elements present. High atomic number, the backscatter electrons will be more, low atomic number, the backscatter electrons will be less. So the image contrast gives to some extent the composite information. So you have the backscatter electron more depending on the contrast. You have bright contrast, you have dark contrast, but secondary electron image is something like the surface structure or the morphology of the material. So you have a stigmatization, so which is not corrected. You have corrected the stigmatization. You have more perfect focus like object can be seen. This also same thing, uncorrected and corrected stigmatization. So you can change the contrast and see the visualization of the images, low contrast, optimum contrast and more contrast. You can have a tilt. Normally in the microscope you have a provision for a sample where the sample can be tilted to something like around 60 degrees can be tilted. When your sample is very poor, very like you are using a thin film, So thin films will be very smooth, the depth of penetration will be very, very small. So depth of penetration will be small in the sense your film, the material will be very small. So you can tilt the sample. So you can tilt the sample and get the depth of penetration slightly more. So that you can improve the signal and you can get better picture. So tilting, now this is at 0 degree tilt, you can do at 45 degree tilt. So you can increase the image contrast by tilting the sample. Is the brightness? So you can, when you see the microscope, you have to see that you should not expose the sample for a long time. So when you expose, the electron beam is going to contaminate by charging up or can make some leaking to the material and you lose the information. So the exposure should be taken and immediately after visualizing the material. So you have the know about the to get a better picture or to get a better visualization of the material. You have to know knowledge of the electron optics, electron beam specific interaction. So what material you are using, what kind of interaction will take place, and you should know the detector characteristics and signal to image processing to make a proper interpretation, and what working distance you have to use, and what spot size you have to use, and what resolution you have to use. And you know that the large working distance is smaller alpha at that small divergence angle, which in turn improves the depth of field. So this is the scale where you can increase the accelerating voltage or you can reduce the accelerating voltage. Reducing the accelerating voltage, you are going to low resolution area. You are increasing the accelerating voltage, you are going to high resolution area. But increasing the accelerating voltage, you have the side effects, and decreasing the accelerating voltage also, you have the some side effects. You are going to more damage, more charge up, more effects, unclear surface structures. But at the same time, you decrease, you can have less damage, less charge up, less effects. So these are the advantages and the disadvantages when you increase the or decrease the accelerating voltage. So I have just covered up the microscope part. What we are just looking is how you can visualize a sample in an electron microscope. So I think you might have understood something about the electron microscope. So main is the source, the electron source. The next is the detector and the electron optical column. And this will be totally vacuum, very high vacuum, in the sense that you should have a very high stable beam. So that you are going to generate a high beam. So that's one thing. And second thing is it should not interfere with the atmosphere. In the sense, if you are having an atmosphere, the electrons can go this way, that way, and you will not get the actual information what you are looking. So this will be in very high vacuum. And when you see the microscope switching on, you have to wait for some time so that the vacuum is created in the electron optical column. Then only you can go to the microscope. But that means you can increase or you can switch on the accelerating voltage. You can insert the sample. So those things we can just see, and how you can improve your image resolution. All those things can be seen. So seeing is believing. So far we are seeing whatever we can see in the microscope is we can really believe those things. And in certain cases, what we see in the microscope, depending on the, suppose you put a biological samples or in any contamination, so that can be also visualized. What you don't see with the naked eye, but sometimes you see with the sample, around the sample, unless you know what information you are looking, can be seen as an artifact. So that you have to avoid when we see in the microscope. So that is with respect to microscope. At the same time, what you see in the microscope can be analyzed. Chemical analysis can be done using a technique called energy dispersive spectroscopy. So normally it is called EDS or EDX. Definitely most of the people can understand whether EDS or EDX. The other technique is called wavelength dispersive spectroscopy. So here the name itself shows that you have energy, you is going to detect, here we are going to detect the wavelength. So wavelength definitely you can't detect at one time, at a simultaneous time, whereas energy you can detect, different energies can be detected in one go. So we have other things what you can see is the EBSD, that is called electron beam scatter diffraction analysis. This is with respect to crystal orientation, grain size, strain analysis, all things which you can supplement with the information from the transmission electron microscope. So this is also in a hot area. So the transfer electron microscope is very expensive. So using this technique, you can get some of the information what you can get with the EDS. So mostly I am going to touch a little bit about the energy dispersive spectroscopy. Wavelength dispersive spectroscopy is very cumbersome and more accurate, but very expensive and very time consuming. So EDS acquisition of all energies, the whole spectrum in one go. It means most of the energies, that is what we call the X-ray energies, coming from different elements, you can observe in one go. That means you don't have to analyze for each element in separately. So WDS acquisition of single energy, one element in one go. Multiple elements can be acquired in parallel only when multiple sensors are used at a time. So WDS, that wavelength dispersion, you cannot do in one go, only you can do for a single element. So WDS is much more precise than EDS because EDS analysis has many artifacts and mostly related to distributed effects. So energy dispersive spectroscopy, using this technique, we can do the composition information of the material what we are visualizing using the microscope. So that gives added information and which you can use in various aspects of the research. Suppose you observe a material having a secondary phase. Suppose you have a material which you see in the secondary phase along with the morphology. So you will not be able to know if it is XRD sometimes. XRD will be able to detect something more than 5%. If it is less than 5%, sometimes XRD will not come under the detection of the secondary phase. But using EDS, when you see the morphology, when you have a single morphology and you have a something different morphology, so you are seeing a different morphology in your sample. So you can point out the secondary phase and identify the chemical composition and pinpoint what secondary phase is formed and how you can eliminate secondary phase or how you can avoid secondary phase and what its influence on the material property. So it will help in many ways, and you can do the qualitative and quantitative analysis. At the same time, you can do the elemental distribution of the elements present over a matrix. That also can be done using EDS. I have some time. Thank you. So it's basically it operates on energy composition principle. This is independent. You have large solid angles. This is specimen position independent. You don't have to change the position. No moving parts. Parallel detection, quantification by standardless and standard methods. And here the energy resolution is something like 130 electron volts. And superconducting system something like you can go to better resolution. And two peak background ratio is something like 100:1. And detection efficiency depends upon the X-ray energy. So X-ray energy is coming from the elements. Suppose you are elements like lighter elements like oxygen, lithium or hydrogen, their X-ray energies are very, very small. So in that case, EDS will be not able to detect those elements whose X-ray energies are very, very small. X-ray energy is coming from the internal transition of the electrons. You know, how you will get K alpha, K beta. So those energies are going to be detected by the EDS. I think if you have any doubts, I think you can ask me. Instead of I can. So you have a wavelength dispersive and energy dispersive. Basically, you have the principle is we are going to detect the energy here the wavelength. Depending on the wavelength, you are using the Prabhakar equation. You can find out the wavelength of the element present there, and your efficiency is very high in the case of EDS. The detector efficiency is very high. You can go to very high counts in both cases, and you can go for more than beryllium. All the elements can be detected, but now you can go more than boron and sodium in some cases. So here your detection is one per detector in all in the energy range in the same one go. So basically, basics of this what I am going to go in the rays of X-rays and what are the detectors are possible as qualitative and quantitative analysis and examples. So this is a part of the microscope. where the detector will be positioned in the one of the specimen area. So this is the specimen area, and the electrons are coming, and the specimen, the detector will be positioned in some angle that is called takeoff angle, so that the whatever the X-rays are generated from the electron beam specimen interaction should go into the EDS detector. So this will be under vacuum, so you cannot expose your detector to the vacuum. So you will have a window here, that is called window. So that is also a factor which will affect the X-ray transparency to the whatever is coming from the material should go to the detector. So there will be different windows are there, and this is called the takeoff angle, and this will be something like independent, but at the same time this will have a control of this scan generator, so that you can do the chemical analysis wherever you want. So you should have a control of the scan generator. So scan generator will control the specimen scanning. Suppose I want to scan this area, so I should be able to point out that particular scan area and able to do the chemical analysis. So scan detector will be taken by the EDS once you are doing EDS analysis. At the same time, when you do the EDS analysis, you should have more current, because you are going to get the interaction will be very less. Sometimes the X-rays will be absorbed because the X-rays comes from the peak at the sample area. So you require more current, and you are doing the chemical analysis. So you should require more current, means you should open the aperture to higher aperture sizes, or you should increase the spot size to large extent so that you get more current. But nowadays you are having more area detectors, you can reduce to some extent this limitation. So you have generation of X-ray detection. You have two types of detectors are called. They are called silicon lithium diffuse detector. The latest one is silicon drift detector. So here, and you can put on this side. So you have the window before reaching the detector. That is the barrier to maintain vacuum with the detector. So you have a beryllium window, which is more transparent to all the X-rays. So, but this can limit the detection by absorbing low energy X-rays. So this can, when you use beryllium window, you can detect from sodium onwards. When nowadays you have a still thin window, that's called super ultra thin window, that's called SUPW. Is made of more of organic polymer based, but this is less robust and very delicate. So when you are using in very high vacuum, and when you push your specimen chamber, when you are opening for the sample loading, then you are creating lot of pressure inside the column, and there is a vacuum inside the detector. This pressure difference can break the window, and which can puncture, and whole detector will go back. So when you do like that, you should be very careful when you do the sample loading, when you are taking for the sample loading. So we have actually CD detector, that's called lithium silicon diffuse detector. You know that silicon is a semiconductor. So if it should be intrinsic, means it should not have either majority carriers of electrons or majority carriers of holes. So you have to make it intrinsic. When it is intrinsic, it is very good for the radiation detectors. The radiation will ionize the silicon, and it will create some ionization, and it will give some electron cloud as well as holes, and those electron clouds can be used for the detection. So when you want to make lithium is diffused into silicon to make a PN junction, and this PN junction will be reverse biased, so that reverse biased, when it is biased, the junction area will be called the intrinsic somewhat. But when you do reverse bias, the intrinsic area will be increased, and you can do more detection in the intrinsic area. So when you do it with lithium, the lithium is highly mobile and room temperature. So you cannot do in the room temperature using this silly detector, because lithium drifts and it gives its own conduction, and you will not be able to detect what radiation you are going to detect. So in that case, the silly detectors normally used in the LN2 debars. So the detector will be housed into LN2 debar, so that the lithium drift will be nullified, and you get the only intrinsic behavior of this PN junction, and whatever the radiation, X-ray radiation falls on the detector, those radiations will be ionized in the silicon, and those electron clouds will be pulled, and those stars will be further made into voltage, then further amplified and seen as the detection of the X-ray what you are looking for. And the latest technology is the silicon drift detector is also made in the same principle, but where you don't have the problem of lithium and you can get the silicon only will be drifted from a concentric electrodes are made over the anode, and by which you can make the gradients very slowly towards the anode, and the electrons, whatever cloud is formed, I will just show you. So this technology doesn't require any liquid nitrogen. You can get very high counts and excellent performance and very exciting. This is the modern technology which doesn't require an LN2. Normally LN2 is very cumbersome to get sometimes when the source is not there near to your place. So here the STD detector is something like this. So you have like a open area, this is the cathode, this is the silicon, and you have different concentric electrodes, and this is the anode. Once X-ray falls and it will ionise the silicon, and more electrons with cloud formation will be there. Due to this gradient potential, these electrons will be drifted towards the anode and it will make a charge. So those charge will be converted into a voltage, and this voltage will be detected for getting the X-ray energy of that particular element. So the silicon drift detector is the latest technology which doesn't require any LN2, and you can increase the area by increasing the area of the silicon wafer. So you can have different areas. Normally this is a 10 mm scale and this is the 80 mm scale detector. So you have more solid angle, so you can get more counts from the same sample area. So you can, when you want to have a high beam current, then only you can reduce the time of X-ray EDS analysis. When you do the EDS analysis, you require a lot of time because it requires more counts or more iterations take place during the EDS analysis. So as you have seen that the depth of penetration is always depending on the accelerating voltage. So WDS, I think when you want to WDS, you have the, just like a Roland circle, you have detector, you have a crystal, and this is electron beam, the X-rays will be generated. These X-rays, the wavelength will be detected using a crystal, and the detector will be detecting the wavelength of the particle. So if you have more elements, you should have move these same geometry into different positions to get detection of all the elements. In the EDS, it doesn't require. So WDS takes more time even for detecting multiple elements in their composition. So you know that I think the X-rays, how it is generated, you know that very well that when X-rays, when the electrons are knocked out from the inner cell, the outer cell electrons fills and their characteristic X-ray will be generated. So you have like K alpha 1, suppose you come from the K to L, K alpha 1, K alpha 2, K beta, depending on the cell transitions taking place in the atom. So these having specific energy for a specific element. So you have like a copper, you have a specific energy. You have iron, you have a specific energy. So you can detect these energy levels and you can identify the elements present in that particular composition. So K lines, you have like I told you, different K, L, M lines. So you have K lines, beryllium, so you can go from O to gallium 31, and L lines, you can, this will come under the 0 to 10 kilo electron volts. So most of the elements can be detected in the same scale, that's the main reason. Suppose you have a beryllium to gallium, sulfur to gold, zirconium to highest occurring atomic numbers, you can bring all the elements either K line or L line or M line into the same scale, so that you can detect in one go in a small scale, so that you don't have to go for different energy positions for detecting different elements. And sometimes when there is an overlap, sometimes these elements will have an overlap, like when you have like a niobium and gold. So the peaks will be very close and overlap will be such. You will not be knowing whether it is niobium or gold, then you have to resolve, then you have to go to other lines, whether those other lines also present, like if you are observing the L line, so you can observe the K line. So you can go to K lines and see whether those lines are also present, then to confirm that overlap, which element is possibly is correct. So like you have like a iron, battery number 26, The K cell electron having a binding energy like 7.1 electron, and the L cell binding energy 7.7 electron. When you want to elect K alpha, this is 7.1 minus 0.7. So that gives the K alpha energy. So K beta energy 7.1 minus 0. That is coming from the M cell to K cell, that is called K beta. So you get 7.1 to 0. So if you take L alpha 0.7, so you have K alpha, K beta, L alpha for iron for the same element. You can detect all these energies and you can make it sure that all these energy levels are possible and you can identify correctly. This is how it looks like. K, L and M fixed reality. You have multiple elements present in a composition. You can get the spectra of all the elements and coming from all these K, L and M lines. So you have like atomic number starting for the K series. I told you already 11 to gallium 31. So you can get all the K lines in one go, that is from the 10 kilo electron volt K. This is the titanium spectrum for different lines. You have the titanium having K alpha, K beta, and you know that K alpha and K beta will have a ratio of like 10:1. Suppose you have a K alpha intensity 10, maybe having K beta 1/10 of that. So you have some more microscope analysis which we have done, radium and sulfur and carbon and oxygen. Only the EDS is not more accurate when it comes to the lower scale. That means the lighter elements, the detection is qualitative is correct, but quantitative is not correct. So you can identify the element, but if you want to do the quantification of the element, may not be that accurate what you actually get from other analysis. Suppose you have the effect of the beam energy also here. Do you have any doubts? Do you have any doubts? Somebody? So you can do qualitative analysis. That is what elements are present in the composition, what you are seeing. Suppose you are seeing a microstructure, so you can know what are the elements present. So normally these are the conditions what one should look for. So you want to do the first is as many X-rays to count as possible. That means you have to continuously count the X-rays for a long time. So you cannot just get a shorter time. So scan over large area of single phase. So you can scan instead of getting a particular spot. You can do the EDS on different forms. That in the sense, suppose you have a frame, I can do analysis in particular this area. I can just spot like this and do the analysis. I can do a irregular surface also, whatever I want. So only I just make the scan calculator to scan in that particular area. That is the meaning. It doesn't mean that you are just doing spotting, but you are bringing the electron beam, the interaction in a specific area. So that's how you have the scan generator control, then you can do a lot of features. Suppose I took a secondary phase like this, which is something different. I can position the beam on this area and do the EDS analysis, so that I can know what elements present in that particular secondary phase. So you can do all sorts of things using EDS. So scan or log area of single phase, use more than one peak to confirm each element. Sometimes if you have very confusion or some doubts are there, you can take the other lines to confirm that element. So you have to have the specimen. Normally when you do the EDS analysis, because it is more angle oriented. What you have seen is the detector is in a particular takeoff angle. So all the X-rays whatever is generated should go into the particular angle. So you should not have any roughness. Suppose I have very rough surface, normally the EDS analysis will not be that accurate, because the signals X-rays coming from the rough surface, maybe some area is pointed and some will be in the shadow region. So the X-rays should be oriented towards the detector. That means the sample should be very smooth and should not be any tilt. Operate as close to zero tilt as possible. So you don't have to tilt away from strong diffraction condition, no strong contrast. Choose thicker area, collect X-rays from large area of single phase. So there are a lot of conditions one has to do when you do the EDS analysis. So this is also with respect to microscope. You have to have a large spot size. You have to use the highest kV possible. You should not use a lower kV for detecting higher energy element. So you optimize the kV whatever you are doing, and so sometimes you have to remove the apertures also out so that you get more beam and more current and more interaction with the specimen. So you can do the X-ray spectrometer also. So the X-ray normally, the X-ray detector normally retractable. Retractable means the detector will be positioned whenever you want to use. So when you don't use, the detector can be motorized, so you can retract backward and position in the same place. Whenever you want to use, you bring it to the detector position and detect the EDS. So these are the detector conditions what you have to do in the X-ray spectrometer. So you have to start with a large, well-separated, high energy peak, try the K family, L family, and N family. So these families are related. Check for EDS artifacts, repeat for next largest peak. Use more than one peak for identification. If you peak too small, to see collect more counts. Suppose you have a peak is very small, you can count more counts so that you get properly the peak intensity and reasonably good for identification. So these are the photon energy and the atomic number. These are the distribution of the K energy, L energy and M energy. You see that the K energy is well separated. When it goes to M energy, the most of the energies are very closely packed. So here the overlap takes place. K series, most of the energies are well separated. So it's the resolution or the detection will be more accurate when you do with the K alpha lines. So if you take it a lower energy scale, you can see somewhat more detail. Same thing. Suppose you see like this K and L and M series, and you look at the 2 and above 1 and below 3. Most of the energies are very close. So for the K and L and M series are very close. You take the phosphate, instead is 15, K alpha is 2.03, zirconium 40, L alpha is same. And for iridium, M alpha is very close. So when you have the energy like this, so you will be able to mistake whether it is phosphor or whether it is zirconium or whether it is iridium. So when the energy levels are very close, it is very difficult to understand unless you look back the other peaks of that particular element. So when you have an unknown like this, you don't know what are the peaks. So you have 1 to 10. So how do you index these things? Only you can index by knowing its energy. So you have to just point out what is the energy, and you can point out the energy and bring to here. So what could be the 26, you have to know what is 26 is iron. So how you can detect the element by taking the energy and cross to the atomic number, and you can detect that particular element without doing any computerized this one. The same thing can be done and fed into the computer, and you can say that this energy and these are the energy levels for this particular element, and you can detect those elements automatically. So all the elements can be detected like that from 1 to 10, iron, titanium, copper, silicon, all these things. Like the unknown 2 also can be done. So these are how you can do these things. These are the quantitative analysis. Sometimes you get blunders in the sense you don't know when you do having same energy position as that other one. So you do some blunders unless you know what elements and what you are expecting to see. Those elements are, you can locate whether you can see the other lines and identify those elements correctly. So these are the elements, some of the elements which we have done in our institute. Suppose we have like lithium, cerium, terbium. So you can normally with EDS analysis, the other factor is what you get is, so what you do the weight percentage and atomic percentage. So normally you do something a formula like Y2Ce2O7. So this is the stoichiometry which you are looking and you are doing the experiment, and you can analyze same thing. Suppose you see that Y2Ce2O7. Suppose this is the composition which I get it. So you see the atomic percentage is very close, yttrium and cerium, 1:1. So what you have done with the experimental and what you get in the observation is almost close. So the atomic percentage of yttrium and cerium, here the atomic percentage is same. Yttrium is 2 and cerium is 2. So it's 1:1. So So you are getting the same atomic percentage when you do the EDS analysis. This also confirms that what you have done experimentally is present in your material, and sometimes this is required when you do with volatile compounds, volatile elements like you do with bismuth, you do with molybdenum. Sometimes what you put in the material may not be there. The bismuth might have been volatile or the molybdenum might have been volatile, and this will be making some non-stoichiometry in your composition and may not be giving as expected. So I just want to have like a calcium molybdenum. So molybdenum may not be 1, so it may be gone something like 10% of molybdenum has gone into the air and you don't get the expected property. So in that case you can do the back process and how you can correct those non-stoichiometry in your composition and correct those things. So EDS is sometimes very much helpful in certain other aspects like that. So you can do a lot of things like that. So you can do the summary of these things. So apart from qualitative analysis, you can do the quantitative analysis, what we have just already given, that percentage and weight percentage. So you can quantify the relative amounts of different elements present in a complex samples. And the EDS analysis is much simpler than the chemical analysis. Chemical analysis is very cumbersome. So EDS is just the only thing, it is called microchemical analysis. It is something like what you are doing, not a bulk analysis. Not you having a sample, you just push all the sample and you just get it. So what you do the microchemical, what is the analysis which you do is something like the micron scale level or micro volume level. So that is the only drawback. Otherwise you can do all the things what you do the normal chemical analysis. But this will, if your composition is homogeneous, so this can be extended to the whole bulk of your material. When you do the quantitative analysis, of course you have the K ratio, that is the intensity ratio of the standard and the intensity ratio of the experimental, and you have the job corrections, and you have job corrections means if you want to do the standardized analysis, you have to do the corrections like atomic number and absorption and fluorescence corrections are to be applied to get a good quantification. So all these things have to be applied when you do the quantitative analysis. I think due to paucity of time, let's stick this in slides. So you can do the intensity of the element of the sample, intensity of the pure element, that means the standard. So by doing this intensity ratio, one can quantify what is the amount of element present using the manual method. So this is the weight percentage, K ratio, that's what we calculated from the sample and the pure element, and this is the job correction, and to 100% gives the weight percentage of the element present in that material. Job is required when you do like there are a lot of problems when you do the X-rays may not be coming completely what is expected. So some X-rays will be observed. So the atomic number also will influence the emission of the X-rays, and the fluorescence also will influence the emission of the X-rays. So you have to apply these corrections to get the correct quantification of the composition. So this is the K ratio and this is the weight percentage, one can get it. And these are the job corrections and the element weight and the atomic percentage can be determined. And these are the quantitative analysis assumptions, and you should not use a detector, what you should do. These are the shadow regions. So these are the detector area and these are the shadow regions. So apart from the quantitative analysis, one more capability of EDS is the X-ray dot mapping. So what we see is the X-ray dot mapping. Suppose you have a, can you go back? Suppose you have a matrix like this. So you have some particles embedded in the matrix. So you want to do the X-ray dot mapping, and the X-ray dot mapping means something like the elemental distribution in that particular matrix. Suppose this frame contains a lot of elements. So those elements, how they are distributed in this particular matrix, whether they are uniformly distributed or they are isolated in some corner. So that can be done at the same time by this X-ray dot mapping. So whatever X-rays coming from these particular locations will be stored and will be put into separate for each element, and those frames can be recorded. Suppose you have like silicon, this is the silicon, you have the sulfur, you have the antimony, you have iron, you have nickel, you have arsenic. All these elements, how they are distributed, can be done with EDS. Suppose you are just analyzing this particular area. So you see, when it comes for the iron, you don't see that particular particle. So this is the aluminum nitride particle. So when it comes to aluminum, aluminum is C. When it comes to nitride, it is C. So this particle is aluminum nitride and the other is iron matrix. So when you do the elemental mapping, so when it comes to this particular particle, it doesn't show any mapping of the iron. When it comes to aluminum, aluminum is C and nitrogen is C. So it is aluminum nitride particle which you can do the mapping with respect to EDS. So you can do a lot of this X-ray dot mapping which will allow us to know that how the elements are distributed over the matrix. So you can do at the same time the line scan also. If I just want to do the line from here to here, what are the elements present in what way they distributed, instead of the total frame, I can do the line scan analysis also. So there are a lot of analysis can be done like nickel, copper, iron. So how the distribution is taking place in this particular matrix can be seen. Same thing so a lot of things can be done using this X-ray dot mapping. This is also same thing what we are doing in this matrix. So wherever the particles are there, you can see the X-ray dot mapping. Even if there is no particle, there is no dot mapping. So you can visualize the X-ray dot mapping very much. So what electron microscopy is an investigational tool in advanced research. So in the science, it deals with the microstructure, composition and characterization of materials. Most of the microscopic properties and behavior of the substance is controlled by the chemical structure and process that take place at a spatial scale of micrometer to nanometer. So most of the things what takes place at the micrometer to nanometer, those things determine the bulk properties. So the microscopy is very essential in any material characterization. Without microscope, your characterization is not complete. Even this our group was working on not microscope, mostly on the functional energy materials, working on phosphorus and pigments and solid oxide applies. So Dr. Sibi, who is one of our partner students, was in our group. He worked on the solid oxide applies. And thank you.